when you're young and in business school and they sell you that just get a job anywhere and you'll be happy for the rest of your life, that kind of message is not great, because then it leads very passionate people to sign up for the wrong kind of job. 2 years later, after that whirlwind of an experience, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm much better than ever. I had like a quick vacation before I quit. I went to San Diego. At this time, I'm kind of thinking about like, what's my next step? But I'm also thinking like, I need to rest. I know I need to find a job. Everyone was suggesting finding or looking, and I was in communications with some old coworkers about other jobs, but I didn't feel it. I wasn't following up. I wasn't applying. I wasn't hitting like 5 applications a day. Like I just wasn't doing it. And I can be lazy, but it's not my usual personality trait. And I think this is for everybody. I don't think people are lazy. I think we're just told and kind of forced to do things we don't want to do. So then we seem lazy because we're not doing it, but we just really don't like it. Maybe that's why we're not doing it. So I remember at the time, I'm like, why am I so lazy? Why can't I just apply? But my soul and my mind was just telling me, you're not supposed to be applying for another job, because it's going to be the same situation. You're going to do something, you're going to work for someone, get a job you kind of half like, do it for the money, and then quit again. I came back home from the vacation. It was Halloween. I remember I had a hoorah with my friends. Like we went out. It was nice seeing them. But after that, I was kind of just like stuck with my decision. I was going through it. I was depressed. I had pimples everywhere. My skin was aging drastically. And I thought afterwards I would be like really happy instantly. But when you go from having like someone occupying all of your time to having all of your time by yourself, and it's not just that, it's that during those years I was learning to adjust to this rapid corporate culture. I wasn't developing my personal hobbies or my personal interests or my personal anything. So when I left, I had no structure to my day. I had nothing that I knew how to do, no routines, even though I liked these activities. I didn't journal, I didn't meditate, I didn't read, I didn't do anything at that time because I didn't have time. So November and December, I decided I'm just going to chill. I'm going to attempt to apply for a couple jobs. I remember putting on my list knowing I wasn't gonna get to any of them. I also started during this time working for my boyfriend's sister's company, doing blog writing like 5 hours a week. And I thought it was the perfect way for me to get into marketing. Again, I could have gone for just a real full-time job, but I just wasn't sure. Like I didn't want to start working for people just to be in the same situation. I did that part-time. I don't think I had any other income for the rest of 2020. I was living off my savings. Side note, I was also in business school during this time. I also started business school, which is also something I didn't feel was right at the time. Like it didn't really fit, but I had always thought, because in my degree program I had done 4 years, and I had on my third and fourth year I was fast tracking. And what that means is basically you are starting to do courses that would count as credit for your undergrad and your graduate. It's like dual credit in high school but for college and for a graduate degree. So I had already started that process, and the plan was to start grad school in the fall of 2019. So I did, and I had kept it going this entire time, like just doing like 2 to 3 classes here and there, but I wasn't in love with it. I wasn't feeling inspired or driven. It was all online because I had work during the day. I also decided to give up going to grad school because it just didn't feel like it fit. Business school is really looked highly upon in corporate, but if you're not in corporate, I don't know, unless you just truly love it, I don't know the benefit. I had always saved money for school, like so that I could, pay back any loans I took out, because grad school loans are ridiculous in the interest rate. So I was always like, I don't want to have any leftover money to pay for grad school. So I would always save money for that. So I was basically living off those savings. When I left the company, I had about almost $7,000. That's basically all the money I had. I was living on my own, so my expenses were about like $2,000 a month. So it would have really only lasted me like 3-ish months, okay, without any additional income. So I made it a point at the end of December. I was like, January, I need to figure something out. So when the new year hit, I was like, okay, by the end of this month, if you don't figure out what you're gonna do by the end of like January 31st, you have to work at another job. I was doing content at the time, not making any money. I was still working for the blog. I was making little money, but it was probably like $1,000 a month. By January, like I was still like, I had an income, but it wasn't anything special. I gave myself an ultimatum by the end of January. I have to figure it out. So what I did is I started applying on a website called Upwork. Upwork is like a freelancing platform, and I had dabbled with it in 2020. By the end of 2020, it's because I didn't necessarily want to jump into it in 2020, but I was like, okay, I don't want to apply for a job, so let me just apply for the, like, let me just make a profile. It was literally the lowest hanging fruit to do, so that's why I was like, I'll do it. I'll just apply, or not apply, I'll just make a profile on Upwork and apply for jobs. It was just a simple process compared to applying for a regular job. So that's literally the only reason I signed up for Upwork. So I did like one job in 2020. Like I did one TikTok job where I made TikToks for a company. It wasn't much. It was like 20 bucks an hour. It was just like really ad hoc type project. I think I did a total of like 3 videos for them. I don't even remember the company. It was so long ago. That $20, by the way, is like Upwork takes a fee. You got to pay taxes. So by the end of that, it's probably like $10, like 10 hot dollars to myself per hour. In January, I thought about Upwork again because I'm like, okay, I don't want to do a full-time job. My only other, option here is freelance. Because the thing with freelance is that it's just a lot easier to get into. I feel like I had marketing experience in my jobs in college, but like not enough for like a real full-time job, but enough to do like people's projects on Upwork here and there. So companies on there are looking for work. They'll usually post like, we need Instagram help, we need this help. And like, I give a lot of credit to TikTok because I truly learned how to be a social media manager through TikTok. Like I would follow all of the social media managers or marketing managers or branding strategists and just like listen to them talk about what they do. And then again, that stuff was familiar to me because I always worked with social media. I loved using it for my personal life. So it was very familiar to me. So I was like, oh, I can do this for other people. Combined with my like volunteer experience and like some of my work experience in college, I was like, yeah, I could totally, tackle some of these jobs. So I remember I applied for a few jobs. A lot of them were like one and done or like a consultation, and I never heard from them again. But after a good like 5 or 6 bad apples, I got to a good one that ended up paying me a lot more than the other jobs. And I still work for this company today. I work for them as a freelancer. So they needed social media help for their clients. And so I worked with them to do social media for their clients. It was a great start because it taught me everything about freelancing and how to get started. After that, I started kind of getting more comfortable with freelance and learning how to interview, work with clients, have clients, invoicing, taxes. I started like deep diving into all of that stuff. So that job wasn't full-time, it was still part-time. So that along with the blog, it was giving me like a livable wage-ish, like enough for rent. So I managed doing that January, February, and I want to say March and April. So basically for 4 months, that's practically all the income I was making. My savings were running out, but I was like, had enough income coming in to like balance it out. Again, I was still living on my own in my apartment. I still had my lease. At this point, my influencer journey was kind of like declining, which again is a whole other story. So I decided to take a step back from that and just content as a whole because I needed to focus on like my career. I was starting to pick up some clients. So everyone, like my boyfriend was like, you gotta just give this a chance. And one of our good friends was like, you gotta give this a chance. Like just try working on that instead of focusing on so much on the content. Because I think during this time I was still doing a lot of influencer type things, trying to get deals, reach out to brands, all that stuff. Because my goal was to make content full-time and not necessarily have to get into freelancing, but I think freelancing was more promising during that time. So I was starting to get clients. I was starting to get a livable income just from my clients alone. And basically, after I landed the agency in January, I was like, okay, you can get to 1,000 this month, and then next month maybe try to get to 2,000, and then next month, the month after that, like in March, try to get to 3,000, and then in April try to get to 4,000. So I was trying to basically build up my income back to where it was. My goal was to make as much as I did as as a full-time employee at my old company doing freelance. So every month I was making goals for myself and I was actually hitting them. So which actually was kind of crazy. I was actually starting to get to them because the cool thing about freelance is you can set your prices. So it was actually attainable every month to move up in income. So I did that up until I would say May-ish. And by May, I think I had like a good 3 to 4 clients. And so I was doing social media for them. So like a full calendar's worth of posts. So it could be Instagram, it could be TikTok, it could be Twitter, whatever. I was doing all of their content. And I would apply when I wanted more money and I would take a break when I didn't. So that's what I was doing. And then in June, I actually ended up starting with another agency doing full-time with them, and I also had some of my older clients too. So by June, I had really gotten back on my feet, I would say, and I actually signed a lease for a new place because it felt like this was becoming very promising. The funny thing is though, when I moved into my apartment in June, I literally had $1,000 left in my savings. Like that was how much I was like this to going broke completely. But after June, it like skyrocketed in terms of like my income and my goal. I basically doubled the income I was making at my company just doing freelance on my own. And even the full-time job I was working with the agency, it was a full-time contract. So it was still technically like a client of mine looking at the full picture, but I just was dedicating a lot more time to that client than my other clients. So it was just kind of crazy during that period because I was really sad that I wasn't really getting to focus on my content, but I had so much work from my freelancing that I was like, I think this needed to happen for me to like focus on the job so that I can survive and live. Because if I was just doing content and putting all my energy into content that wasn't making me any money and not going towards freelance, I wouldn't have been able to rebuild my income as fast as I did. But it just went to show, frankly, just how wrong sometimes other people can be in your life. And to me, I think that had been the start of my entrepreneurial career that I've always wanted. And I can totally go into depth of like my freelancing journey and all of that. But this all stemmed from me quitting my job back in 2020. So this was June of 2021. I started working full-time for the agency and I kept working with them up until November of 2021. But during that time, I was also, finding new clients, looking around. It's kind of like client shopping. And then by the end of 2021, I started working with one of the clients that I still work with right now. But I would say basically after November 2021, I started to fill up my plate with more clients because after I stopped working with the agency, I had like the 40 hours left to fill. So I started filling that up with 4 clients. And then at some point in the beginning of 2022, I had like 5 clients and I had to start managing because it was getting too much. Yeah, and that kind of just started the whole trajectory of me freelancing and up until now. And now I freelance still, but I practically have just like 1 client. My main client is my full-time with the client that I started working with at the end of 2021. So at the time they were just one of my many, but in May of 2022, they became my full-time work and client, and they're called Go Terawatt. It's a coaching company. It's great. You should check it out. I started doing just social media marketing for them in the end of 2021 in November. Well, really it was prior to that, but I would say closer to November, I think it became like very set and serious, and it was social media management only. And then after that, it kind of took off into like creative directing and just like bigger picture community management and all the pieces of marketing that I really enjoy. I get to travel and meet new people and work with some awesome women. And this company is really focused on professional development and, personal development and psychology and all the things that I enjoy in my personal life anyway. So that's been really fun. But all of that to say, 2 years later, after that whirlwind of an experience. I'm here, I'm alive, I'm much better than ever. I went through so much personal development during that time. I had to learn to become self-aware, understand my emotions, because I was going on a roller coaster of emotions from feeling happy to sad to anxious to scared. And basically, when I quit, I had no personal routine or beliefs or anything, and I had to build that up while learning what I wanted to do in life, because I knew I didn't want to work for someone, so I had to nail down, what do I want to do with my life? When you take an employer or an institution out of the picture, it really leaves the world up to you. What do you want to do with your time? And answering that question was basically the whole journey. And now 2 years later, I have a morning routine, I have a night routine, I have a personal life, and I have personal interests outside of work, and I'm doing something that actually resonates with what I believe in. And the message that, you know, this company that I work with is trying to send is the same message I'm trying to send right now in life. And I think it's not just quitting my job, because I could quit my job and go to another job, but quitting my job and actually figuring out the intention behind everything I'm doing has led me to a much better place. And I think that's the highlight. It wasn't just quitting, it was trying to figure out at the same time, what are my intentions and how do I live with that intention? How do I live with my values of freedom and creativity and fun? Like, the best thing about freelance sometimes is like when you don't feel like you're living through your values, you can leave and you can keep reliving with intention one after the other. And the reason I'm very pro like self or independent work is it forces you to live with intention, and it puts you in a better spot to make changes and move around. And I think I've always wanted a dynamic life. Like, I want to be traveling one week, I want to be working on something the next week, I want to be doing something else the next week. I just need that kind of change, and working for a bunch of startups, doing all types of skills. Like, I had to put my video skills to test, my design, my copywriting, everything. And I like that kind of change. So it depends on the person. Some people don't like that, but I like changing up my skills every day in a job. And this is not to blame the company at all, because a huge, if not all of that, was on me to make sure that I was signing up for a job that fit my expectations. But when you're young and in business school, and they sell you that just get a job anywhere and you'll be happy for the rest of your life, that kind of message is not great, because then it leads very passionate people to sign up for the wrong kind of job. One thing I had to learn during that process is people are going to give you advice based on what they're experiencing. And I was listening to people who were in a completely different situation than I was, who had kids, who had a home, who had collateral. At the stage when I was quitting, I had nothing to lose. Yeah, I could have lost my apartment or maybe, you know, some prized possessions, but if there was a time to be selfish, it would have been then. It makes sense to be selfish when you're young and you don't have kids, you don't have a spouse. A lot of the advice I was getting was like, don't do something crazy and irrational, because they wouldn't do that because their situation was different from mine. But in my situation, I had the room to take a risk. And I think that's what's important, is like when you're listening to people and they might be telling you to stay away from an idea or whatever, you got to think about what situation are they in and what situation am I in? Or do I want to be in the situation they're in? Because all the people that were giving me advice, I didn't necessarily want my life to look like theirs. So you have to take advice from people who you want to be like or who you admire, because that will get you to where they are. Anyway, all of that to say, I just think it's so important to listen to yourself. Sometimes you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know what you're doing, and it's good to seek advice. But if you are having this nagging feeling or this constant feeling that this is not right, or there's so many signs that are telling you that your body, your mind, your spirit, your entire being just does not like something, I think it's completely valid to listen to that and do something about it. If I had stayed at the company, I would have been miserable. I would have made people probably around me miserable, and I just don't think it would have been anywhere near where I am today. If I showed myself where I am today, I don't think I would have believed that that was possible. I thought to do something in marketing or have an impact, not just do like grunt work, you would have to work at a company for like 10 years. And that's because my scope was so small. I was only thinking about big companies and working at these corporations, but there's so many startups startups where you can have higher level positions, or you could be making much more of an impact in your role than working for a big company. Working for myself has been really empowering because it makes me feel that like no matter what the situation, I can find another job. I can start something on my own. I can create a community through the people I've met over the past few years. Like sometimes risks work out, and I wouldn't even say sometimes. I think a lot of times they work out. We're just scared to take them. So I just thought I would share my story and kind of give you guys insight into what's been happening in my life the past few years. And I'm excited to make more content. I feel like I'm at a place where I just can't keep the message in anymore. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for whenever I upload more videos. And I just look forward to this new chapter of life and new chapter of content. So yeah.